Yeah, because it looks like I have a lot of reading to do this evening.
Copy all them to Joni.
Jeez, I think I'd make it easier on myself and not have so much to read.
I think they're gonna go take it down or something. The mayor, somebody said.
Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the regular council meeting to order. I'd remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then please let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Councilmember Strebe?
Here.
Councilmember Berg? Mayor Lazio?
Here. Item B, I need a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 31 on October 2nd, 2018 is presented. Acknowledgement of September financial report and payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Appointment of Ann Youngman to the Civil Service Commission, term to expire 4/6/2020. Appointment of Larry Jarvis to the Civil Service Commission, term to expire 4/5/2021. Appointment of Xavier Wilson to the Civil Service Commission, term to expire 4/4/2022. Appointment of Dan Quinn and Tom Hull to the Airport Advisory Board, terms to expire 10/1/2021 due to 2 vacancies. Authorizing payment of the emergency sewer repair on Jefferson Street to Davis County Excavation in the amount of $7,730.36. Approve the purchase of one Flight 3153 pump from Electric Pump of Des Moines, Iowa for $13,893, not including freight charges, to replace one of the 2 pumps at the Kmart pump station. Approve the purchase of one Fairbanks 3x3 model 4523C sludge recirculation pump from Zimmer and Francescon Incorporated of Moline, Illinois for $13,702 plus $625 for expedited shipping for wastewater pollution control facility. Approve the purchase of 1,858 diffuser membranes and 50 retainer rings from Aquarius Technologies of Saukville, Wisconsin for $9,673.50 for WPCF. Approve the purchase of 4 gates for the vertical loop reactor from Hydrogate for $22,000 for Public Works and WPCF departments. Authorizing the mayor to sign leases with CNC Manufacturing LLC for building number 38 at the Ottumwa Regional Airport and lease with A&A Storage LLC for space and building number 38 at the Ottumwa Regional Airport. Resolution number 248, 2018, approving the contract bond and certificate of insurance for the 2018 Upper Story Housing Pilot Project for the 300 block of East Main Street. Resolution number 250, 2018, authorizing reimbursement of expenses in the amount of $38,119 incurred by the city for payment under Iowa Code Section 40319. Beer and/or liquor applications for Bubba Q's at 1110 North Quincy Avenue, VFW number 775 at 702 West Main Street, Club 888 at 123 West 3rd Street, La Cabana y Familia LLC at 707 Church Street with outdoor service area. All applications pending final inspections.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about anything on the consent agenda? Hearing none, they're going to stand approved as printed. Item C, we'll need a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to call on City Administrator Andy Morris to talk about some of the things he's been active with. So, Andy, you have the floor.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. There's one item listed. I'm going to add a second item as well here in just a moment. But the very first piece you see is the civic engagement that council proposal. This actually is a proposal from Apolco. They're a civic engagement entity out of the state of Wisconsin. I know both the mayor and I have had contact with Corey Plash. She is one of their vice presidents. To summarize this, this is a program that develops surveys for communities to get let's just say, a better pulse, a better understanding of how the public really feels. These are a variety of questions. They can range from open-ended to survey to allocation and even pulse questions. What I think is important about this particular model is that it is online. It registers folks if they want to answer these various questions, and it gives us some perspective as conversations we've had before. Sometimes when we think an item may be popular or not popular because 4 or 5 people show up at a council meeting and state their position on it, I think this survey tool will put in perspective much better the answer to some of those questions. There is an annual fee of $3,000 associated with this. The Finance Director, Bob J. and I have talked about what line item that would come out of in the budget, so that's something that we can certainly pay for. There's a couple of items that the city attorney and I need to lock down and grant it before it's signed. I have the authorized to sign for the contract. Again, it's beneath the threshold that I have, so all items being equal, it's something I would like to move on. If council has any further questions, I'll be happy to, quite frankly, show you even some of the demos that they run. They even will, I'll just give you an example of one of the items they shared with us in a city in Wisconsin. They had an issue where there was some parkland, and there were a group of golfers that felt very strongly that particular parcel should be turned into a 9-hole course instead of restored to a park. And these gentlemen showed up several times at the council meeting, made their claim it's got to be turned into a 9-hole golf course, and they kept asking and requesting council to do that. And they did a survey through Polco, and it was determined that 83% of the respondents felt that there should not be this particular golf course. I'm not debating the merits and demerits of 9-hole golf courses. I'm just saying I think this does a very good job of putting in perspective, again, what the public actually thinks and feels about particular topics. This is something that Edward Wilson and Katie King, my administrative assistant, we are ready to move on this and will. As I said, there's just one contract issue we need to have answered to satisfy the city attorney, and we'll move on that one. So, Mayor, that's more than anything else, just an information piece. If you or other council members have questions or comments, I'll be happy to entertain those now or at sometime in the not too distant future.
Okay.
But I think you had conversation with sponsors as well. I think this is a very good tool for us to engage in.
Right.
The next item you see listed, or you don't see listed because this came up rather late this afternoon, Mayor, but an item that occurred earlier this week, I believe on Monday, but I'm not sure on this one, or last week, river rescue. If you would, Mr. Mayor, invite Tony Miller, the fire chief, to step to the podium at this time.
Chief Miller, you come to the podium. We have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I'm gonna give a quick story of what happened, not yesterday, but a week ago from yesterday. About 7 o'clock at night, we had a situation where we had a person in the river. We get our people down there. We have a lot of people down there. I get a call a little after 7 o'clock saying that 3 of our firefighters were in the river. So that kind of enlightens things a little bit. So we was down there. I need to give thanks to some of the people. What ended up happening on this situation is we had 2 guys that were in the river. One guy, Will Munley, one of our young guys, he got out of the river within 3 to 4 minutes. He was out of the river. And he swam to the shore. The good thing about Will just got married 2 days ago, so this could have really had a bad ending. Captain Rich Dam was the guy that was in charge of one of the boats. And what happened is we was going to get this guy out of the river. There's a lot of debris down by there. His boat got hung up, which is why we were down there to begin with. We get our boat relatively close to this guy, and we're trying to get this guy out of the boat into our boat. As we're doing this river rescue, our phones go off, our radios go off, saying Wapello County had just been put under a flood warning. Now we're down there on the river and we see what the water's doing. We know we're in trouble in this situation. What happened was the boat got turned sideways and both of our firefighters got thrown out in the river. Like I said, Will got out of the river relatively quick. Captain Dam was going down the river. It's complete pitch blackout. Gary Dowd was in our rubber raft that we have, was piloting that, and Andy Ewing was with him. They get the river. This Rich is going down the river, and we have absolutely no idea where he's at. And I mean no idea. We had guys on both sides of the river, north side of the river, south side of the river. We had guys on the Wapello Street Bridge, all with lights shining on the water. Hopefully we're going to be able to see Rich before it's too late. What happened is Rich had a reflective coat on, and he raised his arm up about 100 to 150 feet west of the bridge. When he raised his arm up, they seen the reflective stripe. The guys in the other boat got over there, got him inside the boat. Both guys, Will was taken to the hospital, and Rich was taken to the hospital also. This could have had a real tragic ending. And in all my years of service, this is the closest I've ever been where we actually could have lost somebody. Our boat that we had is capsized. I don't know where it's at. We're in the process now of getting another boat, a boat that we're going to have that's going to be able to use when we go out to a river rescue. We're not going to have to worry about losing people or losing a boat. Ironically enough, the two guys I just mentioned that were piloting both boats, Rich Dam and Gary Dowd, yesterday we got mutuated to a call in the Sheridan River. Both these guys were the ones that ran the boat for about 8 hours yesterday in the Sheridan River. So I need to say thanks to a bunch of people, because without these people's help, this could have had a real tragic ending. Marty Counterman's one of our retired guys. Marty's been retired for a long time. He was down on the south side of the river, and he's a river rat. He knows the river, and he helped our guys put the boat in. J.D. Wheaton, the fellow city worker, J.D. Wheaton is also down there helping him out. And these other guys, Lauren McIntosh, Curtis Woden, Wapello County Fire Department guys, they were down there helping us get the boat in and out and get things squared away. Wapello County Fire Department, well, they ran the calls because we had everybody literally tied up on this situation. Darren's Towing came down. Canadian Pacific Railroad, they came down. They probably helped us as well as anybody, is they brought their crane over on the bridge that runs to Turkey Island. If they wouldn't have brought that crane in, we don't know how we'd have got this guy out of the river. So they brought their crane over. We put the crane down there. Firefighter Jeff Box went down there, tied this guy up with ropes and stuff, and got him out of there. Like I said, this could have had a tragic ending. This is where it's at. I just want the people to know that, don't be on the river when it's flooding. I mean, obviously bad things can happen. So that's where we're at. It was a sad situation. It had a good ending. Will got out of the river. He's in the hospital, got out of the hospital. He had his wedding. It was a great wedding. And Captain Dam, you fall off the horse, you get right back on it. Well, he fell off the horse last Monday. And yesterday he was over at Sheridan River, and he got it done. He did an absolutely fantastic job getting this person out of there. So I just want you guys to know that. If there's any questions, I'll do what I can to answer.
Any questions for Chief?
I guess I have a question. You said you was in the process of getting a different boat?
Yes. The boat we have right now, Skip, we don't have a rescue boat. We have a rubber raft. We cannot put that on the Des Moines River. I mean,
and I assume I assume at this point you're shopping around, taking bids or whatever, or do you know what you're going to purchase? Or
what we're doing right now is we're getting everything arranged what we lost. Once we get everything what we lost, then we're going to turn that into, we'll get that to the risk management, and she can take care of that. But we have also started the process of replacing this boat. The boat we have right now that we lost was a John boat. That's probably not the boat you need on a flooded river. If we're out doing a river rescue, chances are it's going to be during a flood. But we're going to have to get a boat that's bigger than what we've had before, because now we've lost 2 boats in 10 years, and that cannot happen again.
Mr. Mayor, one item though, just Chief, if you would, speak to this, and that's we did have a conversation about financing. Somewhat Councilman Stevens' question. We did talk about some financing options, which obviously relate to the city, and then also you mentioned some possible grant sources. We don't need to define those now, but we did have that conversation, you recall, last week.
I would highly suggest you buy what you absolutely need, not a John boat that doesn't really do the job. And personally, I'm in favor of you getting what you should have for the safest possibility.
I appreciate it. Like I said, we've lost 2 boats, and we were this close to losing 2 guys, and that's not acceptable.
Well, thank you, Chief. We appreciate the update, and we're glad that our officers were not injured, or as you said, it could have been much more fatal and tragic. So give our best to them, please.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, is there anything else?
I don't have anything else, Mayor. Thank you.
We'll move to item E on the agenda. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address an item on the agenda, now is the time to at least give us your name and identification. There's a place at the end of the agenda for communications with the council on items that are not listed on our agenda. So we'll come back. I think I have one for that. Okay, let's go to F, please.
Bid review and award contract for asbestos demolition of burned house at 1605 East 2nd Street. Recommendation, award the contract for asbestos demolition of burned house at 1605 East 2nd Street to Dan Larson of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $19,800.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Kevin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. The city accepted bids for this project until 2 p.m. October 9th, 2018. 2 bids were received. Dan Larson submitted the best bid in the amount of $19,800. Staff recommends accept bid award contract above work to Dan Larson for the best bid of $19,800.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
Bid review and award contract for demolition of 614 Boone Avenue. Recommendation, award the contract for demolition of 614 Boone Avenue to Tim Skinner Trucking and Excavating LLC of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $6,298.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor. Second.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Sealed bids were accepted for this project until 2 p.m. October 9th, 2018. 3 bids were received. Tim Skinner submitted the best bid in the amount of $6,298. There was no asbestos on the property and the water service was previously abandoned, which is why the cost of this demolition is a bit lower. Staff recommends awarding this bid to Tim Skinner, Trucking and Excavating, for the best bid of $62.98.
Any questions for Kevin? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the sale of city-owned property located at 713 East 2nd Street.
This is a public hearing, so Kevin, go ahead.
Jacob Phillips submitted an offer for $250 for the purchase of a vacant lot at 713 East 2nd. Mr. Phillips wants to use the property as yard space and gardening. Staff recommends accepting this offer with the buyer paying all costs of conveyance.
Any questions?
I
Well,
have
go ahead, Skip.
I have a question, Kevin. I think I heard or read that there was a possibility of someone building a new home there. Is that still in the works, or?
Not that I know of. As far as I know, he's going to be using it as, quote, green space or yard space and gardening of his own accord.
Yeah, the only
As
thing I
far
was
as I
thinking
know.
is like the lot on South Sheridan that we saved from selling, and now there's a new home going up on it. Could this be the same situation, or?
Certainly such a situation could occur in any instance where we do sell a lot to someone for yard or green space or gardening or any other reason. Once we convey that property to a personal property owner, certainly at any time in the future, they could choose to sell the property or to build upon the property.
I realize that, but I think there was somebody in the works that was looking at that a few months back. Not this guy.
Not that I'm aware of. This is as much as I know about it. I don't know.
I think it was JBS.
Really? Well, that could be. That very well could be. I haven't heard that, but I wouldn't put it outside of the realm of possibility.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this particular item, now is the time to step up to the mic. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number
Thank you.
241, 2018, accepting the offer and approving the sale of city-owned property located at 713 East 2nd Street to Jacob Phillips for the sum of $250. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 241, 2018.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the lease agreement for 510 acres of farmland, more or less, located at the Ottumwa Regional Airport.
Tony, are you going to take this?
I guess I am. I don't see
Okay.
Chris here. The current row crop ground lease at the Ottumwa Regional Airport for 510 acres, more or less, expires December 31, 2018. The row crop ground is bid out routinely. The current bid package calls for a 3-year lease. Bids were accepted by the city clerk until 2 p.m. on September 21st. Only 3 bids were received, with the highest bid from Brad Yeager at $285 per acre farmed per each year of the lease agreement. Staff recommendation is to award to the highest bidder. We've attached copies of the received bids and the proposed lease agreement, and we would recommend that the resolution be approved and the mayor authorized to sign the lease agreement on behalf of the city.
This also is a public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to address this item, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 243, 2018, authorized the mayor to sign the lease agreement with Brad Yeager for the 510 acres of farmland, more or less, located at the Ottumwa Regional Airport. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 243, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Before you take, Joni, just one question, and Kevin just stepped out. Is there any provision that if anything changes at the airport that we can exit that contract or get out of it on short notice? I'm thinking some construction and
The reconstruction?
Yeah.
I did put a language in the agreement that we will prorate that crop year, next year's crop year. So that's already been thought of and it's in there.
Good. That's
So it's there. And we
Okay.
have some other contingencies built in as well. So that is a good question.
very good. Thank
And
you.
Brad was our lessee for the previous bid period as well. And he's been an excellent farmer to work with.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor and been seconded to pass and adopt resolution 243, 2018. Would you take the roll?
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Resolution number 242, 2018, revising policy number 20, 2018, sewer charges and fees, adjusting how the credits are calculated and establishing revised policy number 20, 2018. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 242, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
And I believe, Andy, you're going to cover this?
That's correct. Mr. Mayor and Council, you may recall this was an item, I believe 2 meetings ago, that Councilman Dalby brought up in regards to putting a modification anyway to the credit policy in terms of units. At present, there are 20 units are allowed, and Councilman Dalby asked that we to include more folks in that, quite frankly, process and allowance to lower that to 15 credits. Bob J. went ahead and worked up the summary for this. That one item I would add, as you will see on the staff summary, it does this policy will take effect, and it lists October 17th. And in my notes indicate initially this was passed. It still would take place in October in this month, tomorrow if council approves it. This policy actually dates back to the spring, but it's an item that we're cleaning up in accord with council's desires, not to get too far into the intricacies of it. But if you look at that policy, it's in your packet. Departments of Finance and Sewer Policy, revised policy number 20-2018. You see the leaks that are listed, the cases involving large amounts of water, number 2. Item number 3 really is the item that I believe council wanted addressed, and that's to lower that to that threshold. The others were modified. They probably didn't need to be modified, but I think that's all good and well unless council objects. But primarily, again, this lowers it back to that 15 unit criteria as opposed to 20. I'll be happy to answer any questions or comments you or members of the council have on this.
Any questions for Andy from any of the council? Any comments?
I just have a comment that we would, retro that effective date back to April 1.
I'm sorry, what was
We
that?
will take that back to April 1, capturing those folks this year that did not receive that credit. Is that the understanding?
Very well, we can do that, sure.
Okay, that's all I have.
Just make sure that, and I know Chris will just memorialize that in your notes, and we'll make sure that happens. Thank you.
Okay, so do we need to do anything, Joni? The motion is to approve it with the October date.
You're asking us to retroactively make this policy
When
in
there's already an
effect?
ordinance in effect. At that time, that was a legal ordinance. Can that be
I
done?
think that would be a problem. I think it would need to be effective to the state. And
So-
from this point on,
So the folks who were not able to capture those credits this year are just out of luck?
that's what was approved in May of this year. Yes. So that was what council agreed to do in May of this year. So I think you're going to have a problem if you make that retroactive. I wouldn't recommend it.
That just seems funny to me, but I guess if that's the legal way, we have to do it. But those folks that did not get to receive a sewer credit because they filled their pools this year will not be receiving any credit because of a policy that was written to be too large to capture their pool. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's what the council voted to approve back in May of 2018.
Mr. Mayor,
that amount.
Mr. Mayor, if that, and I'm not trying to forestall any further discussion, there needs to be that, but we will need to go back to then, will we not, for the sake of the city clerk then, and if again, we're not going to make that retroactive, won't that motion need to be modified?
Yes. Well, you have a motion on the floor to approve the policy as presented, which has an October date on it. So you could vote it down or you can amend it, whatever your choice is.
Well, we're saying we can't amend it because that would be a bad idea, you're saying.
That's what I heard our staff say, yes.
Well, then there's no need to forward an amendment, I see at this point, Your Honor. I just think it's a little bit ridiculous, but that's my personal opinion. But I'll stick with what we got.
But that being, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but that being the case, then we would need council to go ahead and still then, as it's listed,
As
then
listed,
adopt
yes.
this. If they
And then
don't
we've
want to
got
do
that
that.
on the floor, so we just take the roll, I guess.
Okay, so the motion you're voting on is to approve the policy that is presented tonight, and that's effective October 17, 2018. Are you clear about that?
Clear.
Okay, we have a motion duly seconded. Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 251, 2018, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the 2018 RFP number 14 Lambourne Sewer Repair Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 251, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Larry. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The city of Ottumwa had experienced a sewer blockage on Lambourne Street at the intersection of Lincoln Street. DC Concrete and Construction was awarded a contract on August 7th, 2018 in the amount of $11,395. The area street removal and replacement increased by 22.3 square yards. Change order 1 increases that contract amount by $4,064.60 for quantity adjustments. The contractor has completed the above reference work according to the request for proposals. This will authorize payment and release of all retainage.
Any questions for Larry on this item? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 252, 2018, approve the professional services agreement with Garden and Associates for the Jefferson Street Reconstruction Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 252, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
This contract would be for professional services to develop plans and specifications. We would target a December, January letting date. The project will consist of reconstruction of Jefferson Street from East 6th Street to approximately 150 feet southwest of Garrow Street. Ottumwa Water and Hydro has experienced numerous water main breaks and is planning on water main replacement at the same time. The city of Ottumwa has just completed a spot repair of the sanitary sewer to allow continued sanitary service. The design would include a separate storm system, water main, and sanitary system. The design would also allow for future separation as Phase 8 Division 2 is constructed, which is planned for this area in 21-22. Ottumwa Water and Hydro will reimburse the city of Ottumwa for water main installation cost. This project would be funded from future CIP bond issues. The agreement is based on standard hourly rates and is estimated to cost $25,000.
Any questions for Larry about this? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 253, 2018, approving change order number 1 and accepting the work as final and complete for the 2018 asphalt street repair project. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 253, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
Our annual asphalt paving program was created in 2003. It is a unit price contract that we bid with asphalt tonnage ranges. Expanded street repair program is funded by the local option sales tax or the lost revenue. This project was awarded to Norris Asphalt Paving, Iowa on March 6, 2018. Change order 1 decreases the contract sum by $489,332.99. This is for the reduction of the quantity throughout the contract. Norris Asphalt Paving of Ottumwa, Iowa has completed the above reference work according to the plans and specifications, and this will authorize approval of change order 1 with the final payment releasing all retainage.
Any questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Before you leave the podium there, Larry, I was just looking back over some information supplied by your department, and I think it's important for the audience to know that in the past approximate 10 years, 10 plus years, the city has spent over $12 million repairing streets. And I think sometimes we don't give that information out as readily as we need to, and we could probably have liked to spend that equal amount again, and we still wouldn't catch up with all the street repairs we need to do. But it was interesting to me to see the amount that your department has been able to spend on street repairs, and I think it's an issue that everybody talks about because everybody drives on our streets. So when you think of $12 million, a little over $1 million a year just in street repairs, that's significant. So thank you for your work on that. Okay, go ahead.
Ordinance number 3148, 2018, amending Chapter 23 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic by repealing sections 23-197, 23-201, 23-204, 23-225, 23-305, and 23-341, and enacting a substitute in lieu thereof by adding new section 23-235 of the Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation: pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3148, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Joni?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is probably one of the first changes that we're going to be making to the code as it relates to parking, and it was really precipitated somewhat by the parking study done for the downtown area as we go through that code section and make changes and recommendations to council. But the first change involves 23-197, and it addresses the issue of individuals who move their cars a couple of inches within the same parking space to avoid getting a ticket but continue to violate the time limitations for the space. So this code section requires that the vehicle be moved completely out of that particular parking spot. Section 23-201 further clarifies parking on a paved or unpaved portion of a street between the lot line and the street. And we have a couple areas in town where there's violations, and this clarifies that. Section 23-204 corrects areas of no parking on public streets. That was done by the engineering department. So went through and corrected. There weren't, I don't believe, a lot of changes. If you've got specific questions, you could ask Larry about those. Section 23-225 corrects the location of passenger bus loading zones at the corner of Market and Main Streets. That is corrected. At some point, we may be moving that location, but we wanted to get it corrected at this point in time. If it's moved, then we'll correct it again. Section 23-235 adds a new section dealing with habitual parking violators. Those owners with 4 or more parking tickets against a vehicle may receive a $30 ticket and have their vehicle towed. The owner would pay all towing and storage fees. So hopefully people, when they do get a parking ticket, we don't like them, but they'll get those paid. And so we don't have a long list of people that don't pay their tickets. We hope they'll encourage that. But the big thing is the vehicle could be towed. Section 23-305 is revised to require a parking permit to be issued and properly displayed on the vehicle front mirror so that it shows the permit number and the expiration date thereon. A lot of times people will just put it on their front dash and you can't see the expiration number. That means it's an improperly parked vehicle and they're going to get a ticket for that. So they need to hang it appropriately. And then there's also reference in that code section to the fact that the Chamber of Commerce issues permits as well. And finally, section 23-341 allows bicycles to be operated on the Market Street Bridge sidewalk, which is common practice since the sidewalk area was substantially expanded when that bridge's renovation occurred. So I think it does allow safely to allow bicycles and pedestrians to walk on that bridge, and they do it all the time. So we would request, staff would request that you pass the first consideration of the ordinance, and I'll just say the recommendation is that you waive the second and third considerations and pass the ordinance so it would be effective when it's published. That's our recommendation. If you decide not to do that, that's fine. If you'd like more public input on this, that's fine. But our thought was, let's get it in place so that we have a new parking attendant. That gives him a little more teeth when he goes to try to enforce the parking issues downtown. So that's the thought behind us waiving that. And I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. Chief McAndrews reviewed that. Larry Seals has reviewed this. And if you have specific questions for them, feel free to ask them.
I think before we have any council comments, there is a person in the audience that would like to address this item. Leah, if you'd step to the microphone and identify yourself, we'll listen to you.
Thank you. I came prepared. Try to. So my name is Leah Morsey, and I worked as a business owner downtown from the beginning of 2015 to the end of 2017. So downtown parking was an issue that I was very familiar with. And though what seems like a petty $15 ticket became one of the many motivators for me to close my doors. My business required making deliveries and dropping off supplies daily, which was a struggle operating under the current time permits. And because of this, I did acquire my fair share of tickets during this time, which strained my already struggling business. And it not only exhausted me financially, but physically, because after all, business owners are only human. But I'd like to point out that the current problems with parking downtown for business owners needing vehicular access to their business, and not everybody is lucky enough to have their own private parking. But let me give an overview of the public parking options for the downtown area. There's 2-hour parking on 2nd Main Court, Marion, Washington Green, 1 hour on 3rd Market and 4th, 3-hour parking in the lots of Green Street, River Street, 3rd Street East, Courthouse Lot, 2nd Street parking lot, and the Second Street parking garage, and 1.5 hours for the River Hills parking lot, leaving only the Market Street lot completely free and the smaller lot of Rushing Way for the entirety of downtown. But no workers are putting in 3-hour workdays. Most are doing more than full time and walking to a car after a long day during early or late hours in the ever-changing Iowa weather, over the train tracks to an under-maintained parking lot for reasons that should be clear would be difficult for many to rationalize, especially when parking elsewhere is rarely to capacity. And the study that you mentioned earlier showed that parking is usually only 1/3 full on average for the downtown area and 59% full during peak business hours, making the need for parking restrictions at all come into question, especially when the move to tow habitual violators or those who repark their vehicles is seen as an option. Wouldn't one assume that if a driver has other spaces for parking to restart their time limits, that the need for more available parking options shouldn't be the problem called into question. Rather, the limits and the public's parking options should be to blame. Yet instead, we're seeking to criminalize those few patrons who support local downtown economy and the small business owners who are the heart and soul of downtown. It calls into question whether the parking limits are a thing of organizing traffic or just to promote revenue for the city. It is, from the outdated numbers that I have, around $75,000 or so that the city makes on parking tickets. And so I hope that these statements don't fall on deaf ears if the main priority is just for revenue. If you could have maybe some proactive options, and some listed perhaps might be looking into options of a trolley bus system specifically for downtown to help commute workers and shoppers from municipal parking directly to storefronts. Look into building a walk bridge, which I know has been mentioned before in council meetings, over the Main Street to connect the Market Street parking to the River Street parking. Looking into possibly allocating parking spots for business owners based on needs, possibly having common sense enforcement to account for moving trucks, construction vehicles, deliveries, out-of-town visitors, people who may need to park specifically in front of certain locations for more than the allotted times. And revenue from the tickets is not necessarily a lot to be gained compared to the potential for economic growth in downtown. We've already had so much growth there and so many people investing into the downtown, and you can't incentivize shoppers when you are trying to overly enforce the parking regulations. And that's all.
Mr. Mayor, if I may speak to a couple points that you, and there are points well taken, but let me go back to talk about some of the tenets of that parking study. And then of course I want council members to chime on this as well. In looking through the parking studies, you recall one of the items that was listed is on let's just say a somewhat equilibrium basis, you've got about 34%, you've got about 1/3 of the parking spaces in the downtown that are being utilized. As you said, at peak periods, I recall the number of more like 45 or 50%.
59.
And that may in fact be the case, but I just want to put that in perspective. A couple of the challenges that we face, and council's talked about this, is there is available parking downtown. We have issues with folks that want to be able to have very quick access to their facilities and don't want to walk a block or two. Another instance where that we have problems, and again, I'm curious what council's thoughts are on this one, and we have no control over this, and that is business owners parking in front of their own facilities. That's not something we can enforce. That's more of a personal preference, but that, I will tell you, is one of our larger challenges. To the point you made about the revenue generation, you're right, it's not a large source of revenue, and we do not balance the budget based on that. I don't want to put Finance Director Bob Jay on the spot. As I recall, 25,000 or so. Is that ballpark?
That's the highest.
That's the highest?
The last 5 years, we ran from between 7 to 12, 5 to 17, 18, 20.
Right.
I do want to ask, does that include parking permits and also the tickets?
Parking permits are considered separate.
Okay.
Separate.
On parking tickets.
One
you.
last item, Mayor, and I'll turn this back over, and that is, in that parking study that Area 15 put together, Brad Grief and I have been meeting on a regular basis. Larry has joined those discussions, and one of the items I do want to point out, one of the items that Brad asked that council or that staff adopt and then see if council endorses that, and that is to have more sets. Your point about the variation in hours is very well taken. And I can't remember verse in scripture what that was, but for the most part, the discussion that we're having with Area 15 is to set a standard where, say, the lots are open for a parking as it relates to the permits and just folks that would want to park there on a regular basis as well, somewhere between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning and somewhere till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So Larry's been working with the folks at Public Works to try and create a symmetry so there isn't that variation of hours, but that's something that's being worked on. And I know one of the last times Larry Seals and I visited about this, he's working on some of that signage, but that will, I do have to agree with that comment. There is a little bit of confusion on that, but again, we're drawing a lot of this from the parking study. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, Leah, I think you made some very good points, and obviously we're going to pay attention to them, and you heard our staff is looking at this, so we'll take that under advisement as we go forward, and I think you'll see some changes in the future. I'm not sure that we can respond to everything tonight, so thank you for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor.
Your Honor, I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
And my questions are probably geared towards Chief McAndrew. I have some procedural questions. I guess my first question, Chief, is on, and I'm going to try to tick through these as they fall in order here.
Okay.
The first alteration is section 23-197, moving their cars a couple of inches. Now, I have heard that in some cases, officers and or the new parking attendant have physically seen this, but in the occasions where the parking attendant has not seen that, how are we proving out that these cars are actually only moving a couple of inches to where they would be justified in receiving a parking
This
ticket?
is how he marks it. You mark it as straight up 6 o'clock and it's moved a little bit to 5 o'clock or
Okay.
8 o'clock on the tire, then you know that it's been moved. We're all talking about the call center downtown. That's all on video down there, so we can actually see them going out and taking the chalk off the tires and just pulling out and moving it. But that's an issue. A lot of the people working there do not want to walk the 100 feet to the parking lot in Green Street, so they will come out and move it every time our guy comes through and marks a tire. And they'll just move it an inch or two, and according to our old code, that was okay. So we're trying to address that.
Okay. My next question revolves around section 23-235, the habitual parking violators.
Yes.
So it is saying specifically 4 or 5 parking tickets against a vehicle. So
Yes.
if a person has 2 different vehicles, they can essentially rack up 8 unpaid tickets before one's towed?
Yes.
Okay, and my second question as a follow-up to that is, let's take this down the line. They get 4 tickets and their car is towed. What happens? Do they just pay the towing and impound fee on that, or do they have to pay the parking tickets as well before they receive the car back? Because I assume that at some point that's going to come to question.
Right. I don't know if it's in the, I'd have to read through it and make sure that we cover that, but I think right now they just have to pay the $30 fine and the towing expense. And then if they put it back out on the street, we'll tow it again and they can pay the $30 and towing expense again.
Okay. And my last question for you, Chief, is Section 23305. I can just see this coming. We write a ticket as a city for failing to display the ticket properly, and somebody decides to fight that and go to court. What is our defense for saying, no, it wasn't? I mean, is there photographic evidence that it wasn't displayed properly, or will this just kind of get thrown out because, well, you really don't have any proof that it wasn't displayed properly?
I'll give Joni an answer, or a chance to answer that. My feeling is we know who the problem people are that are going to fight them, so we'll take pictures with those cases. But I don't think we take pictures every single time. It was just too labor intensive.
Sure.
To download that. So we have our habitual violators, and when we know they're going to fight the tickets, we'll take a picture. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Joni.
I think that would be appropriate to take those pictures. And I just might point out on we're talking delinquent parking tickets.
Correct.
So if they pay, they may have 20 parking tickets, but they've all been paid, they don't meet the definition of the habitual parking violator.
Right.
Correct. Okay. And that's my last question, I guess. I do want to make a couple of comments because I did receive a couple of calls from citizens about this issue. And it seems I appreciate both sides of the arguments on these. Unfortunately, it seems as though we're kind of in a situation where we're going to displease half of the people while we please the other half of the people, and doing nothing obviously doesn't seem to be an option, because by doing nothing, we've created a problem for both the people who are trying to shop downtown and the people who are trying to conduct business downtown. So that's not working, and just doing away with the rules isn't going to work, because it's only going to exacerbate the problem that we have right now. And then to the other side, to the citizen that spoke, I completely understand her point of view also. So, we kind of get thrown in a little bit of a bad situation where we're quote unquote damned if we do, damned if we don't.
That's exactly where we're at.
and by not doing anything, we have a parking attendant in place now, but if we don't do anything and don't address this tonight, we're effectively tying the hands of the person that we've just hired to take care of it. This, to me, and I know a lot of people, for both of the calls that I received, revenue was brought up, and personally, I would just assume we never made a dime off of parking tickets. That would be my preference, but that would mean no one was breaking the rules either. So, to me, it's not about revenue generation. It's about making it to where the business owners are content that the people that are coming down to do business with them can actually get in and get a place to park, because I have heard people say, if I can't find a place to park literally right in front of the business, I'm not going to do business down there. I'll go to Walmart or wherever the case may be, whatever it is that they're doing. So, I think that's the catch-22 that we as a city are in, is no matter what we do, somebody's going to be unhappy about that.
I agree with you 100% on everything you just said. We do have a lot of business owners. The majority of the calls that I get are from business owners who are upset because people are parking all day right out in front of their front door. But we also have business owners that we've written tickets to that have been upset because they want to park in front of their door all day, because their business doesn't count on traffic coming in and out. They just park there. They might be an accountant, an engineer, whatever. They're in their office all day. They don't have to count on people being able to park in front. So you're right. It's half the people are going to be upset. Half the people are going to be happy that we're doing something.
And there are business owners. There's one particular business owner in town that is the source of this moving 2 inches. Yes. They're sending their employees out on break to move 2 inches instead of asking them to go to one of the other places to park. And unfortunately, that business owner is effectively hurting the business for all of his neighbors.
Yes.
Good point. I think Councilman Stevens has a comment.
Well, for one, I'm glad to see this. I've talked to a lot of the merchants downtown. Those parking spaces to those merchants is dollars. If they don't have the spaces for their customers to come in, they're losing dollars. So I'm glad to see this happen. I talked to some merchants that told me that their neighbors would drive around the block and park on the other side of the street near their business. Is this going to be legal to do this?
Yes,
I wish there was some way we could stop that.
I do too. I wish some of the agencies and businesses would take charge of their employees and prevent them. I don't know. There's a couple that do that, and I don't know how they run a business that way.
The call center itself probably doesn't affect them in any way, one way or the other. But then I've had people say, well, in the wintertime, if I park in the parking lot, I got to walk a block or a half a block to my store or the office where I work in high heels. Well, this is Iowa. You dress for it. Take your high heels to work and then put them on when you get there if you want to. I could get on a soapbox, but Joni, does this address tenant parking, the renters downtown in any way?
Not directly.
There's another issue. We have people living in the apartments downtown, 4 or 5 of them park all day long, some of them. And then at night in the wintertime, and when the public works crew is trying to remove snow, there's 4 or 5 cars sitting there. So I think anybody that rents an apartment downtown should have a designated lot that they park in, not on the street. And another question about bicycles on the sidewalk, on the bridge. That's illegal in the downtown area. Why would we not want them to walk their bicycle where there's pedestrians on the bridge?
I don't have an issue with that. I guess I wasn't have anything to do with that ordinance, so I'm not for sure. I know they are writing them now, so I mean, if you're not happy with that, we could change it.
Well, I don't know what other people's feelings are, but it seems, I know the walk's wider, but it seems dangerous to me. Somebody going across there on a bicycle and you got maybe little kids and a mother walking across there. If you have to keep them off the sidewalk downtown, I think I don't have a problem with them walking across there, but I just thought it'd be dangerous riding across there.
Well, I walk there just about every day and with my husband, and there's always several bikes that go past us, and there's plenty of room to do that. And if they want to go the loop, go a loop around, that's the only way they can get there, really. So anyway, that was my thought. If we're not going to enforce that regulation, we need to take it off the books.
Are bicycles, Joni, not allowed on sidewalks?
They're allowed on sidewalks everywhere except the downtown
Area.
district.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. Okay. That's what I thought.
Okay. Councilman, go ahead.
Leah, thanks for coming in, and I appreciate your comments. And the information that you presented to us, I think, is telling in one key factor, and that's that we have a lot of available parking in our city. And we're lucky as a city to have that much parking. In bigger cities and even some other comparable cities, it's really difficult to find parking. People have to drive around for maybe a half hour to find a spot. We have parking here. And I think that the citizens and the business owners, I think the responsibility falls on, on them. Chief's point about walking 100 feet is a great point. If we had someone who we knew was elderly or frail or something like that needed a parking spot, would we just, get our car in there so that they didn't have an opportunity to do it? Or could we park it, a little ways down there to give them the opportunity to park there, or to give someone the opportunity to be a patron at one of our businesses? I think we can walk. I think we have enough parking, and I think some of this can resolve itself if everybody takes a little bit more responsibility and realizes that they don't need to park right next to their business, or they don't need to park right next to the building that they're walking into. There are people at Walmart that park right near the door that you walk into and wait 45 minutes for someone to go in and shop there. That's completely irresponsible. I don't even think it's legal to park there. So I think we can all be a little bit more responsible and think about other people instead of the luxury it affords ourselves.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, one other thing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Larry brought this up also, is isn't the bridge part of the multi-use trail?
Would you speak in the microphone?
Isn't the bridge part of the multi-use trail? Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 foot is considered a multi-use trail. When we designed the Market Street Bridge, it was considered part of the loop and trail system. I know some people feel that's narrow, but 10 foot on a bridge structure was just too wide. Our standard trail is 10, which is considered a 2-lane bike path, but a multi-use trail is 8. You know, and I might add more of a history on the time. I know a lot of people get confused on the downtown parking time limits. Those have all developed over the last couple decades. The Public Safety Board, along with OBSAP, looks at requests from businesses from time to time, and it's really based on what type of businesses in the local and general businesses. That's why those times aren't consistent. I've had different people ask me, why isn't it the same on the entire city? Those developed based on business needs. That's after business owners in that area come to us, requested that. It was reviewed. They've changed multiple times over time, and I expect them to change in the future as business needs change.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've had some good discussion, good comments, and certainly take that into consideration.
Mayor, could I add one more thing?
Certainly.
When we make an ordinance change, Chief, do you get copies of this? Like in this ordinance, no parking between the street surface and the right-of-way line.
Right.
That's changed from what it was.
Correct.
And you will get copies of that?
Yes, I've got copies, but it'll go out on Muni Code, and we'll get all of our code books updated down at the police department.
And the officers will all be aware of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor to pass the first consideration of ordinance 3148. Was made and seconded. Are you ready to vote? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Waive the second and third consideration, pass and adopt ordinance number 3148, 2018.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3149, 2018, amending chapter 24 and a half entitled Nuisances Resulting from Abandoned or Junk Motor Vehicles or Machinery by repealing section 24 and a half -2 and enacting a substitute in lieu thereof in the municipal code of the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3149, 2018.
Is there a motion?
The recommendation is presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Joni, it's back to you.
I guess it's me again. This was an ordinance that I prepared at the request of the police chief. When we recodified, it was clear that state law governed abandoned vehicles, towing of those vehicles. They set out the complete process. But so we made reference to that, took that all out of our code. But we really needed to keep what the definition of abandoned vehicles is under chapter or section 321.89 of the Code of Iowa. So we just simply made reference to that and got that into our code so then our officers can then proceed for those abandoned vehicles within our city limits. And we're also requesting that to waive the second and third consideration of this.
Okay. We have a motion and it's been seconded. Are you ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Waive the second and third consideration, pass and adopt ordinance number 3149, 2018.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. I assume there's no questions since you just had a good discussion. Okay.
Councilmember
roll.
Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Item J in our agenda, if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address an item that's not on the agenda, that's city business. Seeing none, okay. At this time, I'd like to call on Councilman Dalby to talk to us a little bit about his experience with the Video Game Hall of Fame. So Matt, you have the floor.
I feel kind of lonely up here without Councilmember Berg here, not to add her comments too, but no, simply just real quickly, I know we're ready to get out of here, but on October 6th, I had the pleasure of filling in for Mayor Lazio as Mayor Pro Tem and attending the Class of 2017 Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the mall. And it was quite an experience, seeing people from all over the country, software engineers, software designers, gamers, people who had a real impact on the gaming community, flying in from all over, like I said, parts of the country and celebrating that event. And one in particular person that was there that day was David Crane. He's a software engineer who had co-founded things that we're all familiar with, such as the Atari gaming system and company, and Activision, and companies like that. Just surrounded by a wealth of intelligence and people who are, obviously out of my league. But it was real nice to share the evening with them, to hear some of their accomplishments and things that they have done for the gaming community, and talk about their love to come back to Ottumwa. These folks, like I said, don't live anywhere near here, and have done great things for the gaming community, and their contributions to that type of thing were amazing. But they all loved coming back to Ottumwa, to our mall, and celebrating those inductees and some of their accomplishments. And so it was nice to sit there and listen to the experiences of all the inductees and watch them get their Hall of Fame awards. And so I had the pleasure of proclaiming that day as David Crane Day, October 6th, for the city of Ottumwa. And he made the comment to Holly and myself that and some of the folks at the Old School Pinball Arcade folks, Bill Hoffman, that if Ottumwa needed anything, that they would be more than happy to be here for Ottumwa, and look forward to coming back each year for those events. And so my hat's off to all those folks and people at the Old School Pinball Arcade for giving folks a place of all ages to come play and have fun and keep that tradition of the world of the Hall of Fame here in Ottumwa alive. So it was a great event, and I appreciate doing that.
Well, thank you for doing that, and you and Holly appreciated your support for that. I should mention tonight too, I think I did the other day, but Holly Berg is under the weather tonight, but she has been recently elected as the president of the Central Iowa Tourism Region, and that's quite an honor, and will be good for our community. And she's been very active with the CVB, Convention Visitors Bureau here in town. So we're lucky to have her at the state level serving in that capacity, and she will do a good service for us. I also want to mention that we had a rather interesting and I think a very productive meeting with our code enforcement and planning staff last week. And I think the message that we should share with the public is that our council would like to see us be more assertive about code enforcement. And so again, whether it's a junk vehicle, whether it's a nuisance, we are going to pay more attention to that. And I think people are commenting to us, at least, that they can tell a difference and they want to see us continue to do that. So appreciate that. And lastly, today, we had the opportunity to visit with Debbie Durham. Debbie Durham is the state director for the Iowa Economic Development Authority. She spent the entire day here with many of our staff, but also many of our partners. We had representatives from the Chamber, Economic Development, Main Street, Convention and Visitors Bureau. Who am I leaving out? And Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress. We started at 9:15 at the airport. She toured the airport, spent some time with Indian Hills, their flight and air power and frame program. She was really impressed with our airport and the potential that we have, and she's going to help us with a project out there. She then toured downtown. She actually went up into some of the apartments, the upper story apartments. We also went to the Spark Tank. She just had a really good day, and we had people from all those organizations share with her some of their accomplishments this last year and what they're working on in the future. She was very complimentary and said that they are serving as our marketing department, and that they talk about Ottumwa and Des Moines a lot more now than they ever have, and it's very positive because they see the facade improvement program downtown, all the things that we've done with Main Street. So I want to give a shout out to Fred Zessinger for the hard work he's done. He really has brought in a lot of money for downtown businesses and for our community. I think it was just a great day with her. We picked up some information. We gave her some information. But it's a great when she knows our folks on a first name basis. And if any of you have dealt with her, she's a very straightforward, honest, sincere person who she'll follow up and do what she says she's going to do. So we appreciated the getting a whole day of her time and look forward to the benefits that will bring down the road when we need more funding and other projects that we're going to be submitting to her. So Andy, you were there. Any comments you want to make?
No, Mayor, I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
6:40.